Reptichip sets the standard for reptile substrates. Made from the highest quality coconut available anywhere in the world, Reptichip allows enthusiasts and keepers to provide their reptiles with the necessary humidity and thermoregulation required for your animals to thrive. You can support the podcast by heading to reptichip.com/snakeboy or visit the link in the description below. This episode is brought to you in part by Exoterra. If you're as passionate about reptiles and amphibians as I am, you know that quality matters. I use Exoterra products on all my reptile and amphibian enclosures, which is why I'm excited to be partnering with them. From naturalistic decor to innovative lighting and enclosures of all sizes, Exoterra has everything you need for your cold-blooded companions. Exoterra, make your reptiles feel at home. This episode is brought to you in part by Unlimited Exotic Pets. Every day is Veranda Day for Nick Lillis, and it shows. At Unlimited Exotic Pets, Nick produces high-quality monitor lizards with a deep commitment to ethical care practices and top-tier nutrition. These aren't just pets. They're responsibly bred, ethically raised animals. Whether you're looking for a new companion, starting a breeding project, or anything in between, Nick has you covered. Unlimited Exotic Pets, keeping and breeding quality without limitations. Love reptiles? Don't miss this. If you're passionate about reptiles, amphibians, and everything cold-blooded, Reptiles magazine is a must-have. Each issue is packed with expert care tips, stunning photography, and the latest news in the reptile world. Whether you're a seasoned herpetologist or just starting your reptile journey, this magazine has something for you. Subscribe today and stay informed on the best ways to care for your scaly friends. For only $14.99 a year, you can step outside your algorithm and get exposure to things that you wouldn't normally see or learn about. My family reads Reptiles magazine, and you should too. Visit subscribe.reptilesmagazine.com to get started. This is the Expert and the Idiot podcast. If you like the show and you'd like to support us, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below. Some benefits include getting access to new episodes up to a month in advance. There's also links to USARK and USARK Florida. If you're not already a member, please sign up. Enjoy the show.
Start with me saying I'm pretty anxious.
All right. Well, welcome to episode 85. Today I'm talking to Andy Carbin of Carbinator Reptiles. And you mostly deal with Corrales, right?
Yeah, particularly emerald tree boas. I've just started amassing some Amazons. Well, I've got one so far, and I've got another one that's I'm on a list for. So just going to try and build up a small collection of them as well.
Nice.
And I've recently got some Sanzinia as well.
Yeah, Sanzinia are crazy, man. They're really beautiful.
Yeah, awesome snakes.
How expensive are they over there? You're in the UK, right?
Yeah, they're nothing like they are in the States. I got a feeling like a green Sanzinia in the States are about $5,000, aren't they, or something crazy? But
yeah,
in this country they're a lot cheaper. I think the Western browns are you regularly see them for about 300. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, 300 quid.
Wow.
There's a lady up in Scotland that breeds them, and I think it was 3 or 350. She was advertising them for. So yeah, it's quite a difference. I guess it's all supply and demand. If you haven't got many over there to start with, and not many people have bred them, they're going to be dearer, aren't they?
I'm assuming that they can't be imported here from the UK.
No, I mean, they're CITES. We have to have DEFRA certificates from the Appendix 1 animals. So I've got a feeling, I'm pretty sure they can be traded to Europe and stuff with the right. I don't quote me on this 100%, but I've got a feeling there's something about America that you're not allowed to bring them in from other countries, because I think I think you would have by now if you could.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody would be, right?
Yeah.
So how did you get started in reptiles? What's kind of your background? What is what drew you to them, and what's led you to keep them for your life?
Well, as long as I can remember, I've liked sort of all animals, but and I don't know, I can't remember an instant that set it off, but particularly snakes. Just always loved snakes. Growing up, always wanted to keep snakes. My mum wouldn't let me. We weren't allowed to have snakes, but did have a range of other things from like chickens, usual pets, guinea pigs and stuff. And plus, I would, try and catch anything I could find outside. And my bedroom was full of tanks and jars and boxes, full of anything I could find when I was a kid. I think my earliest memory of anything like that was one evening before bed, stood in the kitchen, and sort of age you are when you kind of have your very sort of first memories. So I don't know, maybe like 4 or something. And I can remember my dad coming in from outside, and he said, "Wait there a minute." And he went out, he picked this jar up, and he went outside, and he came back in, and there's this big green bush cricket in the jar with some leaves, and he stuck some holes in the top and handed it to me. And yeah, maybe it's his fault. I don't know why I got into all this, but yeah, that's my earliest memory of any sort of animal I've kept. Yeah, so the UK is not quite as rich in wild reptiles as where you're from over there. So quite limited in what you could find, but I would have frogs and toads and like grass snakes, which are one of the sort of local species. And then when I was about 19, so it was quite a while ago now. That was, in fact, 92, I think. I had my first bull snake, which was a royal bull python, which I've still got now, 33 years later. So and on the way, accrued various other things, and always mainly stuck with pythons and boas as an interest.
Were you involved with animals in your line of work?
For some of it, yeah. I'm not anymore. I was a reptile keeper and senior keeper at one point, Bristol Zoo, which is now closed. It closed in 2022, unfortunately. Oh. It's a really old zoo. It's been out since the Victorian times. But yeah, zoo I used to go to as a kid, and I always wanted to. It was something I always wanted to do, and I managed to get in there. Yeah, for 12 years I worked there, which obviously great job. But zookeeping doesn't pay very well, and I kind of ended up having to do other things, really. So
that's such a depressing thing to hear, and I wonder why that is. And it seems like it's the same thing here too. It's not. That's definitely not just the UK. I mean, because I've heard that here in America as well.
Yeah, I think it's animal work in general. Often, it's kind of jobs that you want to do because you love the work. So that the pay is not so good. I did try before I left there. I went part-time, and my idea was I was going to breed rodents, because I was breeding rodents and supplying a few friends, and I was going to try and make a part income off of that as well. I rented a unit at a local farm and went into that, but it seemed like the bigger that I got with it, the less money I was making per hour, if you see what I mean. I think all the little jobs increase exponentially that only took 5 minutes before. I don't know. It seemed like something I think that needed to be either huge and employ people, or kept very small. So that didn't work out, and I ended up leaving, and I work as a landscaper now. Basically, completely different job change.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That's sad that you have something that you're passionate about that you want to pursue, and that but we need our landscapers too.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, it is a shame, but I mean, I got to do it for 12 years. You know, worked with some awesome animals, some great people. So, you know, got good memories of it.
Yeah. And what did you is there anything that you picked up from the zookeeping job, or did it go in the reverse where your experience from outside actually helped you be a better keeper?
Probably a little bit of both. I suppose what I picked up from working at the zoo was just how much animals will use space and enrichment that you give them. I've done keeping in racks before. I still use racks for babies and things like that, but I try and give my adult animals a little bit more space and decent lighting, and you know, whatever enrichment I can, really. Like, you know, we had a good example is we had a pair of rhino iguanas, and if you'd asked me before working in there, oh, I'm going to get some rhino iguanas and I'm going to keep them in my spare room that's 10 foot by 10 foot. That's going to be their enclosure. I said, yeah, that's a good size. It's a good size for them. But these were in with our giant tortoises, and they were in a sort of 20 foot by 40 foot, I think it was, greenhouse with a paddock that was probably 2 or 3 times the size of the greenhouse on the side of it. And they literally used every inch of that space. You know, They was in different places. They were really active and stuff. So, you know, I'm not saying it's wrong to keep one in a smaller enclosure, but it kind of just opened my eyes to sort of things that you don't expect, you know, to use that much space, you know.
Yeah, it's so when you use the word enrichment, what does that mean? Because I feel like that's getting to the point where there are certain people in the hobby that when they hear the word enrichment, it's like an instantaneous eye roll, you know, where it's, you know, that it's sort of, it's kind of like that whole like rack versus cage, right? It can become a point of contention, right? But enrichment for me, it means, you know, a branch to climb on, or some foliage to go through, or utilize as a hide and things like that. So what does it mean for you, and what did it mean during your time as a keeper at the zoo?
Yeah, when you use things like, say, putting a branch in is enrichment for an animal. I suppose there's a couple of different ways of looking at it. Some people will say it could live without that branch, and adding that branch is enrichment. But if the branch is in there all the time, it's not like novel enrichment. I suppose there's different types of enrichment. So I think having a branch in for something that climbs really is just being a good keeper, personally. And I would say enrichment is mixing things up. You know, putting a novel item in there. It can be just like a cardboard box, cardboard tube, a different branch, something like that. And that will stimulate their mental capacity as well, because it's something new to investigate. So, you know, I think an example given to me during my zoo training was you could put a leopard gecko, I think they said, in a tub with paper towels as a substrate. And it will live on that substrate, but you could give it a different type of substrate it can burrow into, and then you're enriching its life beyond surviving, I guess. But,
do they dig a lot, leopard geckos?
Yeah, I mean we had some in a display actually at the zoo that they had a fairly deepish layer of sand, and there was rocks, and they used to tunnel under the rocks. We used to make it so the rocks couldn't fall, obviously put them in first and pile up sand and wet one area, so they'd have a humid hide, and they would dig in under the rocks, dig into the sand, and it was like a sandy soil mix just to put in there for them. But yeah.
Nice. So what are you keeping? Do you keep Amazon basins or northerns?
Northerns I keep, yeah.
Okay.
I've had Amazons in the past, Amazon basins. I had a pair a long time ago, and I didn't end well, unfortunately. Bit of a sad story.
What really? Why is that? Why do you think that is? Like, what do you think went wrong?
I'm not sure. I had them, I think it was in 2006 I bought them. And they were, I think it was the male was a yearling and the female was 18 months old, something like that. So grew them till they were sort of 6 years old. And they both seemed fine, just standard, sort of keeping, cycled them, paired them. They bred. Everything was like really textbook with them. She ovulated. And then what I'm guessing was probably a couple of weeks before she was due to give birth, just walked in, found her dead on the floor. So she died gravid. Yeah. So I did open her up, and there was like a load of dead babies in there. They were sort of like near full term. They were basically size and development ready, but they were still like a pale pink color, like where they hadn't. I think the pigmentation is one of the last things on them. So they just had to color up, absorb their yolk sacs, and they'd have been born. Yeah, never knew why.
Do you have any guesses?
No, there was nothing that I could see inside that. Well, I don't think it would have been an obstruction anyway because they weren't ready. So, but no clue at all. It was like seemingly completely healthy animal. Just, but it is what can happen with animal keeping and breeding. Fortunately, it's not super common, but yeah, it kind of humbles you a bit when things like that happen. Yeah.
And do you plan on getting them again, or was that sort of such an off-putting experience that you don't want to now?
Yeah, it put me off for a long time, but I would like them, but they are just so expensive. And for the extra money, I don't see them as being, to me personally, I like the Northerns just as much.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with them at the moment. Maybe one day, we'll see.
Are Northerns a lot easier to keep, in your opinion?
No, I didn't notice much difference between them. I think Northerns, to me, they're very difficult if they're wild caught, especially if they've already been sort of messed up a bit by somebody else. I think they're the kind of snake that when they get messed up, they're very difficult to recover. I think that's what possibly happens when they're, I don't know, wild caught.
And what do you mean by messed up? Like dehydrated?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there'd be a big difference. I mean, and it might be different over in the States because you're a little bit closer to where they get imported. I don't know if by the time they reach the UK, they're in, they've maybe already been to a Florida exporter or something and then shipped around the world. So yeah, I think like if they're held in suboptimal conditions for periods of time, I think there's a sort of thing that's difficult to recover when they're messed up. But I think if I flew to Suriname, picked one off a branch and brought it home, it'd probably be fine. That's how I sort of feel around. But as captive breds, they're a whole lot different.
So everything that you deal with is captive bred, just for the sake of it being easier and them not having to change a bunch of hands.
Yeah, all the emeralds I've got now are captive bred. I did have many years ago. I was breeding them before, and I had a female that was wild caught as a baby. She was good. She was already a couple of years old when I got her. She was really robust, decent animal. She bred several times for me, but yeah.
And how many times have you successfully reproduced them?
Well, counting all those years ago, I bred my first breeding, which was probably about 25 years ago now, with the female I just spoke about. That was sort of a bit of a fail. She gave birth early. They all had their yolk sacs on, and they were all almost dead when I found them. So she was like premature birthing, that one. But then a few years later, I bred from her again, and I had another female that I got that was captive bred, and they bred every year for the next 4 years. So I've had 4 litters there. And now recently with the new ones that I've got, I've had 3 litters so far. So 7, you could say 7 fairly successful litters, probably.
How long do you leave the babies in with the mother?
Not long. I usually sort of get them out. So with the litter that I had last September, I was lucky enough to sort of be there when she started. So I got loads of pictures and videos of the process. And yeah, just once she'd finished, I left them for a little bit to settle down, because she was obviously a little bit sort of agitated from just giving birth and that. So I waited for her to just go and coil up somewhere, and then I just gently picked them all out, or so I thought anyway, until I looked on the camera that night, and there's like a night vision, and I could see this baby crawling around in the enclosure. So I went back out, and there was 11 and not 10. So yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And what do they go for over there? Like what should you expect to pay for a captive bred?
Captive bred baby emeralds, sort of from about 1,500.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty manageable. Like that's not.
Yeah, it's not. You'd pay it for a dog, wouldn't you? It's what,
yeah.
Well, it's what people charge for dog. Yeah. Well, I know it's a completely different animal, but it's still buying an animal. Sure. If it's what you want, isn't it?
Yeah. And especially captive bred and everything too. I'm sure. What's the price difference between wild caught and captive bred?
I think the last wild caught one I saw in this country was on Morph Market, maybe last year, and I think it was 800.
Okay.
So yeah.
Man, yeah, that's
probably
worth
half
the money.
Price. I think so, for peace of mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're rearing it from a baby as well. It's going to get more accustomed to the way you keep and your setup and such like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the basins? You said that they were 6 years. Like, how did you have those for 6 years before you reproduced them?
I think just under that, because they were already. I think they were about a year to 18 months when I got them. So I can't remember off the top of my head now exactly, but I would have grown on them for the rest of the time. So 4.5 years maybe.
Oh man, that is so painful.
Yeah. It's a bit of a kick in the teeth. That was, but
yeah.
Yeah,
that's very sad. You have Timor pythons as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, I got a pair of Timors. Yeah.
Are those captive bred?
No, I got them as again. I think they were probably like between a year and 2 years from a chap. He'd got them as captive farmed babies. So yeah, they would have been imported as babies, but yeah, they're like 9 years old now.
Wow.
So yeah, been trying to breed them for a few years now, and haven't had any success yet. I get quite a lot of mating. It's just the females never ovulated. So I'm trying a slightly different technique. I think it was on NPR. I think Owen was saying they did an episode about Timors, and I think he said that there's like food there all the time, but not super abundant. And then there's like a couple of bird migrations, and they just feed up like crazy when there's these migrations. I'm trying to simulate that by sort of giving them, periods of none or not much food. I mean, I've been food cycling them anyway. I think I probably wasn't feeding her heavy enough to get her to go.
Yeah, I remember them talking about the Barkers reproducing them and just like feeding them hamsters to the point that they were almost puking.
Yeah, I've heard stories like that as well. Just keep feeding them. I mean, my female was eating 2 big, sort of extra large jumbo rat, ex-breeder males in one sitting. I was giving her.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah, she's quite a big snake. She's she's in an 8-foot enclosure, and she's a touch longer than the enclosure when she stretches out. So
shoot.
Yeah, she's a good size. So, but
how many years did it take her to get to that size?
I was looking at some photos the other day, and I think she's been in that enclosure for about 4 years, and they came from 4x2x2s, the pair. Then so I think they were probably about sort of 6 foot when I put them into that enclosure. So I keep them together. They're cohabbed. the enclosures, I'm actually going to be building a new one because I'm extending my reptile room because I'd like it to be a lot wider. So it's only 2.5 foot wide. It's 3 foot tall and 8 foot long. And I built it so you could put a slider divider in the middle. So I just separate them to feed them. And I leave it open the rest of the time because I'm kind of thinking letting them dictate when they're ready to breed rather than me thinking when I should pair them. So, yeah.
Yeah, that man, that's so much food. And you said that was, how often was that, those 2 big rats?
I was giving her that probably about once a fortnight. This was just over a period of about 2.5, maybe 3 months at the most. I kind of chose a small window to just feed her fairly heavily like that. And probably like the last, maybe, I don't know, 3 feeds or something. I gave her the same like 10 days apart just to see if it would, induce an ovulation. But yeah, didn't get any luck. So I've put them back on a much more moderate feeding schedule now. Just like, medium-sized meal once a month or something. And then I'll try in the spring, maybe. I think I'll give them maybe like 3 or 4 months over the winter of nothing, and then hit them hard again in the spring, see what happens. Or I might even wait until they start copulating again and then and do it then. Maybe that might be a good idea.
If you were to keep them separated, what size enclosure would you keep them in?
Well, I've got a bit of a plan in my head of when I finish my extension. I'm going to build 2 enclosures, one on top of the other, and they're going to be probably 8 foot or maybe just under, depending on how the space works out in length, but like 1 meter wide and 1 meter high, each one. And I was going to put them one on top of the other and connect them by the floor with like probably some kind of big drainage pipe with a screw cap or something, so that most of the time I can leave it open and they've got 2 big enclosures and they can climb, up high and that. And then when I need to separate them, I can just put the cap on. So yeah, that's my plan.
Yeah, that so 3 foot by 3 foot by
okay. Probably just under 8, like 7.5 foot, something like that. And 3 foot high, 3 foot deep, roughly. Yeah.
Okay. And those will be that. Yeah, that's a pretty big enclosure.
It's a good size, isn't it?
Yeah. At some point, I'm going to have to upgrade mine. I know it's inevitable. I mean, my males are staying quite a bit smaller than the female, but the female's putting on size quickly. But she's in a 4x2x2. So I know that, she's going to have to get upgraded to at least a 6x2x2 and probably eventually something larger, maybe a 6x3x2, or maybe 3 feet high. I mean, she spends a lot of her time, I have like branches similar to this behind me in her enclosure, and she spends almost all of her time up in those branches, kind of perched up.
Yeah. Even my female being the size she is, she still climbs loads. I did wonder whether I'd be better off building one huge enclosure that was 2 meters high, so they've got like loads of climbing, but then it's more difficult to separate them for feeding, or if she, is gravid and I need to separate them or whatever. So probably won't do that, but it was a thought I had. But yeah, she's quite shy, the female, more so than the male, and she spends a lot of her time, she'll either be in a hide box or there's a shelf that she basks on under the lamp. But if you look go in there in the evening or look on the camera in the evening, and they're both crawling around in there, are up in the branches. There's loads of branches in there. Even at sort of 8.5 foot, she's still pretty athletic.
And how's their disposition, or more importantly, hers, I guess, right? Because she's the bigger of the 2.
Well, as crazy as it sounds, I haven't handled either of them for quite a while. Wow. They're very easy to work around as long as it's not in the evening and then they're in food mode. So for cleaning, I mean, if the female's on her shelf and I don't go stupidly close to her, she's fine. I might put get a container lid to use as a shield just to put in front of her if I've got to put my face a bit close. But she's never seemed to be aggressive. If she's in her hide box, I can just take the hide box out and put it somewhere, maybe stick something over the hole just in case. and clean like that. And the male will usually, if he's out and I open it up to do any maintenance, he'll usually shoot into a hide box as well, and I can take that out there. They're so easy to deal with like that. I've probably not handled either of them, actually got them out manually for over a year. Like I say, because and I don't see the point in hassling, because they don't like it. I've never handled them that much. I noticed when I had them growing on when they were young and they were in tubs, so they were on newspaper, and I had to pick them up to clean them out and that. They weren't too bad, but once I put them into a vivarium with substrate and I could just spot clean and move things around, and with them still in there, they while they stayed easy to work with, they sort of got a bit more scatty to being touched and handled, probably just because I wasn't doing it. So
yeah. Yeah, that's very similar to mine. Kind of as they've gotten older, I've handled them less because it's just a bigger mess, and they're kind of harder to handle, and they kind of go into this flee mode where they're wiggling and just trying to, literally, it's like they just want to fall on the ground. It's like that's all they're trying to do. And the crazy thing is that getting my female out with the hook, I got her out, and I always thought that it was, if you can just get her away, once you get her away from the cage, then she'll stop fleeing and peeing, And I got her out on the hook. She was totally calm. She hadn't peed yet. And then as soon as I put my hand out and let her come onto my hand, as soon as she felt the contact of my skin, she started peeing everywhere. It was like she had no control over it, and that kind of made me think, like, man, this has nothing to do with me taking her out of her enclosure. It's just me, she was so comfortable on the hook. And then as soon as she actually touched me, she was like, oh, this is, not a good situation.
Yeah. It's another animal touching them, isn't it? Basically. Although they don't react when another snake, when one of the others crawls over the top of them. So I bet they're going to be able to differentiate that. They might be able to feel your body temperature or whatever, when you touch them. So yeah. And they can be quite, like say, quite messy, can't they? I mean, sometimes it's a full-on tail flicking around like a windmill with pee flying everywhere and urates and stuff. It's no fun, really, is it? And I'm sure the snake doesn't like it either. So that's why I just don't handle mine unless I have to, really. I'm not looking forward to, if she ever does lay eggs, taking her off the eggs. That could be fun and challenging.
Yeah. I feel like they are one of the just like one of the most hands-off pythons out there. It's wild, and it seems like no matter how much effort and work you put in, they however good they are with you when you put them away on that previous session, they're just as freaked out the next go around. They're terrified.
Yeah, it's a good job they're beautiful, isn't it?
Huh?
It's a good job they're beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and you get to see them, and it's especially when they kind of don't notice you in the room and they're out and about or something. It's sort of a treat.
Yeah.
I mean, their food response is absolutely insane too. I mean, they're like, when they're switched on and the lights are off, God forbid you go in there into the enclosure to do something, the speed that they move is, I mean, a lot of my snakes, they'll kind of be curious and come towards you, but it seems like they want to bite and wrap first and ask questions later. I mean, they'll come across the enclosure at me pretty quick.
Yeah, definitely. My male is particularly like that. When the lights are out, he's always ready to eat. The female's quite greedy as well, but she doesn't always want to take food from you. She's a bit sort of shy of taking it sometimes. So I just usually leave it on top of one of the hide boxes near to where she is. And I've watched her before, she'll sometimes investigate and, like, inches away, flicking her tongue for ages and ages. And then suddenly it's like a snap. She's struck and she's round it. A lot of snakes, when they're drop fed, don't always strike quickly, do they? They just work their mouth over it. But she still goes through the whole strike thing and wrapping it. But Yeah, she's got to look at it for quite a long time first, I think, suss it out.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's like the opposite of my female. Just seeing movement in the room, she'll think that it's time to feed. It's
Time to
pretty
feed,
wild.
yeah.
Even, my kids will be like, oh, she's looking at me. She's curious. And I'm like, dude, she wants to eat you.
Wants to eat you. Oh, dear.
Stay away. And I tell them, I'm like, stay away or she might, smash her face into the glass and damage herself.
Yeah, my male is definitely like that. He always strike feeds and he's always looking, if the lights are out and you go in there to do something, he's looking through at you, waiting. Yeah. But in the day, he's quite different. If you need to, say when I split them up to feed them, if they're both on the same basket shelf, and I kind of tend to move him rather than her because he's easier to move, you can kind of hook him off the shelf a bit and use a hand on a, further away part of his body to move him. And he's not too bad. He wants to get away from you, but you can do that and kind of direct him to the other end of the enclosure and he'll go up there and you can slide the divider in. But yeah, he sort of, you can tell just by touching him that he's on the verge of peeing all over you if you were to take it any further.
Yeah, you see their cloaca swell up like a water balloon. Yeah, it's such a terrifying thing.
Yeah, it is a real shame because they look awesome especially when they're quite a good size, and to be able to sort of get them out and interact with them a bit more would be nice, but
yeah, it's very sad.
Yeah,
it's boy, I'm gonna have to start thinking about where I'm gonna expand them out to now because that'll be some big enclosures potentially.
I don't think how big get that big, but I mean, like my female is a good size. And I've never, before trying this sort of breeding conditioning, I've never really been a heavy feeder with them. I've kind of fed them a bit more, modestly, a medium to large food item every 4 to 6 weeks or something as adults.
Oh, wow.
And, like maybe a bit more like you'd feed a scrub or something, but I think they've got a faster metabolism and they need a bit more food.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think so my two males, I think I give them right now small rats every 2 to 3 weeks. And then my female is getting a medium rat every 2 to 3 weeks. But they're only
they're young and they're still growing, aren't they?
Yeah, they're only like 2 years old, so they still have quite a bit of growing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I can't even imagine a 9-foot Timor. That's gonna be a wild thing.
Yeah. That's your replacement for a berm, then, isn't it?
Yeah, except berms are so such the opposite personality wise. They
are. Yeah. Well, I've heard you say about it's a snake you'd like to own. So if you get your Timor to the size of a berm, then.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm sure that my Argentine boas are going to be, very large and heavy bodied, and I'm sure if she keeps her current disposition, she'll be very laid back. I mean, she's like a puppy dog.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I don't want an angry Argentine, but I really think they seem to chill out so much in the first year of life.
Most boas, as in like the genus boa, don't they? They maybe a bit hissy as youngsters, but as they get older, if you work with them, they usually become fairly docile. I know exceptions to that, but
yeah. So that's pretty wild. So your Timors are 9, and they're actually locking and breeding. It's just she's not ovulating.
She's never ovulated. Yeah. I get sort of. It's usually around sort of December to February. I find I'll usually start seeing some courtship behaviour. I have seen full locks before, but I generally because they are a little bit sort of shy and nervous. I walk in there, and the male's spurring the female. They'll usually it's like they sort of suddenly just freeze because they see you come into the room. So they're a bit shy about it, I think. Whereas the emeralds are quite different. You walk in and they're caught in, and the male just carries on spurring and jabbing at the female, and less camera shy.
Yeah, that's too bad. I hope she goes for you soon.
Yeah, it'd be good. Hopefully with, like I say, up in her food, fingers crossed that's what was missing before. I do think I just wasn't quite giving them enough when I was feed cycling them.
Now, I can't remember what the Barkers found and what they said on that episode of NPR, but is that food cycling only for the female, or is that necessary for the male as well? I mean, if you're getting courtship behavior and you're getting breeding, it's just the one thing is the ovulation. I'm assuming that it would just, the male doesn't need that same heavy feeding, right? Because whatever you were doing, it was getting him to go.
Yeah, I guess so. And the female's the one that's got to, accumulate enough weight to develop follicles and mature them. So she's the main one. I mean, I think probably it doesn't hurt for the male to have some kind of cycling as well, food wise, just to sort of, let him know that that's the right season if that's necessary. But, you obviously don't want your males being overweight either, do you? So.
Yeah,
he's not going to need anywhere near as much as the female, I would say.
Now, is there a time of the year that you fast them?
Yeah, usually in the winter, sort of, probably, let me think. Last year, I fasted them for 4 months when I sort of first found out about, or had this idea of, upping the food. I think it was all of November, all December, January and February, and then started feeding again in early March.
Okay. And then, so I'm assuming that come September, October, that's when you're really ramping up the feeding and doing the bigger meals more frequently.
Yeah. I'm gonna start it now because I had fed her up for quite a while this year, so she's actually got quite a good amount of weight to her. So I didn't want to go too crazy. But yeah, probably September and October. I'm gonna start ramping it up again, and then leave them, and then, like I say, again in sort of March. I may start feeding them up earlier if I notice a lot of courtship and copulation, because I don't know whether that would be an indicator that she's kind of ready. If you see what I mean.
Yeah. Have you thought about separating them for that sort of 2-month period where you ramp up the feeding? That way, when you reintroduce them, maybe it would stimulate sort of like, oh, there's, somebody new here.
Yeah, I've separated them in the past, but before, this feeding regime, it might be something to think about for the future. I don't think I'd want to permanently separate them in the enclosure they're in, because they'd only be in like 4-foot sections.
Sure.
And I think the female needs a bit more space than that. But maybe when I do their new enclosures, maybe.
Yeah.
Try that.
I'm just trying to, I'm trying to come up with a strategy for mine. That's all I'm doing.
Right.
When that time comes, I mean, it's not, it's still years off, but, it's they seem, I mean, that's awesome that at least you're getting the courtship and everything out of them, because some people put them together and they don't get anything, there's no interest from the male.
He's always had his little spates of interest. It's not all the time or anything, but it's like I say, usually in the winter, in winter time. So
and what do your temperatures drop during that time as well?
They do, but I don't intentionally drop them, if you see what I mean. My reptile room just naturally cools down with the seasons because it's cooler outside. So I end up with, it gets too hot in the summer. So I've got an extractor fan at one end, which is on a reverse thermostat. So when the temperature reaches like a maximum level, that kicks in. So on a really hot summer's day, that's on pretty much all day. And then the opposite of that, in the winter, I have an oil-filled radiator on a thermostat to just keep the room. I basically try and stop the room going hotter than about sort of 80, 82, and colder than about 70. I usually like it in the winter to be about sort of low 70s at night. There's obviously heating in the enclosures. I generally use halogen bulbs on a dimmer stat. as a heat source.
Okay.
So when they go off at night, they're exposed to the sort of temperature of the room for whatever time of the year it is. So it'll be a little bit cooler in the winter, and a bit warmer in the summer, because just it doesn't cool down to that amount, in the summer. So that's how I work all of mine, really. So I don't purposely set anything for each individual animal for winter cooling.
So I'm sorry, I think you just said this and I totally missed it. Do your heat lamps, are they just sort of on and then off, or are they dimming based on a temperature set point in a thermostat?
Yeah, they're dimmed. They're on dimming thermostats. So there's a sensor probe in the enclosure, like you can see behind me. See that?
Yeah.
Where is it? Wrong side. There.
Yep, there it is. Yeah, I see it hanging
down there. And once it reaches temperature, it'll dim off or dim to a lower.
So how many watts is that bulb?
That is a 50 in there.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's in a 4x2 by 2.
Okay.
That's just a quarantine enclosure. Actually, that's I got two stands in here in our bedroom. Actually, is quarantine. So
damn. And okay, so like I use 25 watt bulbs.
Yeah.
And I just let them turn on and sort of, run full blast all day. And they're set for sunrise to sunset. And then I have my UV set to come on an hour after sunrise and turn off an hour before sunset.
Yeah.
And so far I've been really digging that. It simplifies my life. I'm not going through, I don't have to adjust anything, and where it's just gonna adjust throughout the year, so that way I guess you could consider that as another form of cycling, as the days get shorter, and so that hopefully that'll be just an additional trigger for them.
Yeah I must admit I tend to keep my light cycling, because the room's got no windows that they're in, so it's the enclosure light. So they got halogen bulbs, UVs, and LEDs.
Oh wow!
On most enclosures. So yeah, that is their light, and where emeralds come from, it's pretty much 12-12 photo period. So I just tend to leave it 12-12 all year.
Yeah, because they're so close to the equator. Yeah, we're pretty similar here, in Florida, because again, we're fairly close to the equator. So it's, our swing isn't that huge, aside from daylight savings always throws a wrench in everything.
Yeah.
So you use UVB on all your enclosures?
Most of it. All of my adult enclosures have got it on them.
Okay.
But basically, once they're big enough to come out of a tub and be in a vivarium, they've got UVB and a spot lamp. For the babies, they're in tubs with heat mat or heat strip, just heating that, as you would in any normal sort of rack system. Just keep my eye. When I've got some sort of medium-sized sort of tubs, which I did cut some when I was growing on the last lot of emeralds, actually, cut some pieces out the top and put some stainless steel mesh on, and had a UV over the top of them, and that worked quite well as well. But I still had it heated with a mat at the bottom. But I'm going to try and change that system a little bit for the next lot of grow-ons. The thing I wasn't happy with that is because the heat was coming from underneath. If you had food defrosting, and you sort of like walked up to the tub sometimes, because they're very, very heat sensitive emeralds, and they would strike at the floor, and they'd get a mouthful of substrate or paper towel or whatever you were using. So I'm trying to work out a way of maybe putting the tubs on this side and making a door on the front, so it's like a small vivarium, and having the heat strip on the back, heating it like that. But still trying to come up with something for that.
Okay. And why do you use UV?
I think it's beneficial. I'm not saying, I know a lot of people don't use it and still get good results. And I've not used it in the past and got good results. But I think for anything that sits outside all day, it's not even like an emerald is hiding under a log or something, or a rock and coming out at night.
Yeah.
They're sat on a branch, and I know that they'll seek shade, they'll be under leaves and all that, but it's still daytime and it's still daylight, and UV reflects all around off of things and that. So I'm sure that they get some, and I'm sure that they can get it if they want it by moving into sunnier patches. So I just thought, why not? If I can, I just try and make the husbandry as good as I can, really.
I recently heard something, and it seems legit. I think it was reported in a legit place, but essentially, because I'm in Florida, so we have to worry about the skin, especially me being as white as I am. I've had stuff cut off my ears and everything already, and
right.
They essentially said like being in shade is not any form of protection from the sun, that the UV radiation and everything is still getting through that shade, and it's still hitting you. Like that radiation is still causing damage. So even though you might be out hiking and on a shaded trail with, trees arching over it, you're not protected. Like you still need to wear sunscreen or layers, hat, so on and so forth.
Yeah. If it's intense enough, you can still burn, can't you? So,
I remember going to the beach as a kid, and it was a cloudy day, like a cloudy, overcast day. And I remember that was like the worst burn I ever got in my entire life, because you thought you were safe, but you weren't.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I seem to remember study where they were looking at, I got a feeling it was Dr. Francis Baines, where they were looking at UV. And I think maybe this was when I was working at the zoo, one of the conferences I was at. Might be wrong, but I think that's where I heard this. But basically, it was to do with the skin of different reptiles and the sort of UV permeability of it. And I'm pretty sure it was a bearded dragon was one example, and they measured with some skin how much came through it, I think. And the other example was a house gecko, which has got very, very thin skin. I mean, you can almost see their internal organs going through the belly. So, and it could have been a Euromastix, actually, not a beardy. Anyway, it was some desert lizard. And I know that like the UV that could be absorbed through that thicker skin over a period of so many hours, the house gecko could do in like 20 minutes of being in a sort of shaded, just with maybe a little bit sticking out from behind some plants or something. So it all goes to show how they've evolved to cope with what conditions they're in, doesn't it?
It's I just had Scott Eiper on, and he was talking about keeping snakes outside, like diamond pythons, and he said that their skin and or their scales rather get harder, like you can feel a difference between the animals that you keep outside. And I was thinking about that after the fact, and I'm like, that makes so much sense, because you got to figure like their scales are made of the same stuff as our fingernails, right? Like,
Keratin,
so you got to figure like vitamin D3 is going to make that just stronger, and just a more stout, it's going to be more stout, more robust, especially compared to an animal that's, kept in a tub.
Yeah. Cause I mean, exposure helps with us as well, doesn't it? Which is why we tan. So if you tan, I mean, I work outside all the time. I don't wear much in the way of protection. I tend to try and do it with clothes.
Same
and
here.
I tan pretty quick because I'm working outside all the time. I gradually tan as it becomes summer. And like so now my arms are really brown, and that is what it's designed for, isn't it? It's to protect you from the sun, that melanin in your skin. So.
Yeah, it's when I'm at work, I wear like whatever it is, UPF 60, long sleeve shirts and a full brim hat, and just try to cover up as much as possible. But I mean, I'm doing that now because for probably a decade I did the opposite and just got burned every week, and then had some scares at the dermatologist office. So now I do what I should have done.
So to be careful of,
But I mean, I like the UV. And what kind of LED lighting are you using? Just regular LEDs, just for additional light?
At the minute, I'm using Arcadia Jungle Dawns.
Oh, okay.
They produce quite a nice light and quite good for the plants. The plants seem to grow well under it. I haven't got that on this setup in behind. This has just got a spot lamp and a UV. Like I say, they're just sort of in here for quarantine, and then I'll change a few things around when I get them out into the other room. But I'm pretty happy with the Jungle Dawns. I think there's an Exoterra one now, isn't there? That I remember you. And Tom,
I think it's Terra Sky.
Terra Sky. You and Tom were talking about that, weren't you? On the Damascus on the podcast you did. I can't remember. It was such a long podcast. I ended up listening to it in sections, and sort of it's all a bit all over the place in my head. But that one's maybe worth having a look at. I think as well, maybe.
That was. It was only 4 hours and 50 minutes. Don't be dramatic. It wasn't. So do you ever use anything like radiant heat panels, or do you prefer using heat bulbs?
I'm not using. There's a heat panel in because the Timors are on the floor, and the floor is fairly poorly insulated. There is a large heat panel at one end of there that is just set to kick on if it gets too cold at night. But now I use the oil filled radiator. It probably doesn't come on there. I used to use heat panels a lot because they're good from the point of view of they're really thin. You don't need anything hanging down, or you don't need a space above to have a bulb above. Yeah, nice and neat. But as you were talking about on that same podcast, they don't provide really the right kind of heat. The infrared A that a bulb does to warm the animal. So it's almost like bulbs were the thing years ago when I was first keeping reptiles, and heat panels and ceramics kind of came in, and everyone was sort of thinking they were the best and went over to use them, but it sort of turned a full circle almost now, I feel, and I personally prefer bulbs.
Yeah, me too. I was using the deep heat projectors, and I just kind of dial them in to peak out at one temperature, at the highest point in the day, and just leave them, kind of just leave them on all day and night. And but I kind of like just having the heat bulb come on, and some days are hotter than others. And in my opinion, that's going to be, the closest I can replicate what is happening outside. I mean, there are days where it's blazing hot out, and there's days where it's cooler. And my diamond pythons are sitting outside in that. They've been out there, I think, since March I moved them outside. So they're, they've been getting 96 degree days, and that's just the temperature of the air, so their bodies are probably, if they were actually to lay out in that, it's got to be a really hot spot. But so how often do you do water changes? How important is that with the emeralds?
Yeah, I think hydration is a really important thing with them. My routine is to do it every other day.
Holy cow!
Particularly for the emeralds, but I try and do it for all of them if I can. I don't worry if I miss a day because something's come up, but I try and do it every other day. I think it keeps the water fresh. I usually spray down the inside of the enclosure as well, because humidity is quite low in my room, particularly in the summer with the fan coming on. It draws, air through, and I think it dries it out a bit. It can be sometimes as low as like 40% in there. Okay. So to keep them humid enough, I use cocoa chip in the vivariums, and I change the water, spray it down. I don't know if that's a cue for them to go and drink because it's kind of rained. If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
But mine all drink out of bowls fine. You see them drinking at night often. I don't think you need to make them drink by spraying them with water. I mean, it works for some people. Some people use rain systems and that, but I've never ever found the need to do it. I think the most important thing is to make sure they're humid enough and they've got access to clean, fresh water.
So you don't mist the animals directly. You're misting the substrate.
I mist the substrate and all the leaves, and I will mist the animals if they're just there where I'm misting, but I don't purposely hold it on them and make it rain on them, if you see what I mean. I use a pump up one, and I kind of adjust the nozzle so that what's coming out is somewhere between like a mist and a jet. And it's sort of like, if you hold that sort of up high, it kind of falls down like droplets rather than being like a fine mist or a jet. And I tend to just go over each enclosure with that basically, and kind of, so it's sort of falling from above, and it, lets everything down.
What size enclosure do you keep your emeralds in?
The adults are all in 4x2x2s for the females. The males are some are in 3x2s and some are in 4x2s. Yeah, I'm hoping to maybe upgrade that a little bit as well. I'd like the two big females to be in something a little bit taller if I can. Because they're good chunky size. So
How big are they?
The biggest one is probably, I'd guess, about 5 foot, just under 5 foot. She's quite a chunky animal as well. She's got a really big sort of dragony head. If you look on my Instagram, she's the one called Lagatha, and I just put a post up yesterday, I think it was, picture of her. She gave birth in October last year, and so it's been over 10 months. She's had 9 feeds, and you wouldn't have thought that she's really like sturdy and chunky.
Wow.
I think I'm going to have to dial her back a little bit more, actually. I think she's probably a really good weight converter, because she's one that she produced a litter in, well, it should have been in the 2022 season. I would have expected her to give birth sort of towards the end of 2022 from when they bred. She ended up ovulating late, and she actually gave birth in the January 23. So the next year, but only by like 21 days, if you see what I mean. So I decided, rather than, because when you give them 2 years off between breeding, you're sort of pairing them, or starting to pair them sort of a year or just over a year after they've given birth. So that when they give birth to the next litter, it's, you see what I mean, sort of giving birth in September 23, you'd then think, well, she shouldn't give birth again until at least September 25. So you make them up at the end of 24. That's why I've always worked things. But I decided, because she sort of was late giving birth, that I wouldn't mate her up at the end of 24 to give birth in 25. I would wait another year. And come February, I think it was, she was fairly robust looking, put all the weight back on, but she was also lying in weird positions and sort of swelling up like she was developing follicles. She looked just like they do when they do that, and, lying in weird positions. So I was a bit concerned that she may ovulate again and lay a clutch of slugs, which are obviously more difficult for a female to pass, and they're more likely to have complications with. So I thought, if she's going to do it anyway, I just as well pair her. So I put the male in, and they were locked up in less than an hour.
Wow.
So she was obviously ready to breed again. So I'm trying to give her an extra year off now, so I don't want to be pairing her in the next couple of months. and she's already looking quite chunky. So I think I'm going to have to dial her feed back even more just to get her through this period of this season.
What is her her feeding schedule like? How often is she eating and what?
She's had 9 feeds in 10.5 months. So I would have fed her the day after she gave birth. I fed her, and I probably then fed her fortnightly for a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, just to get a bit of sustenance into her, and then probably once a month, something like that. So every 4 or 5 weeks, maybe. But she's maybe I should have fed her smaller items, maybe. But,
well, I'm sorry. What did you say? She was eating a medium or
rats? Yeah, what I would call a sort of medium rat, which is about, I think they're about 150 to 175 grams, something like that.
Okay.
Don't know if you do rat weights, but medium, I'd say.
Okay. Yeah, so it seems like she's just really efficient at putting weight on, huh?
Yeah, seems like it. Yeah. Yeah.
And it seems like she's also a breeding machine.
Yeah. Yeah. But like I said, I don't want to overdo it. I'd rather give her another, because she did have a sort of slight complication the last time she bred. I was watching them on my phone while I was working, because I work really local some of the time. So I was able to nip home. And yeah, she'd had, I can't remember off the top of my head now without looking it up. I think it was about 3 or 4 babies. And then she was straining for ages and ages. And she had a really big slug that was sort of stuck inside. I was kind of thinking of trying to palpate her to see if I could help out, but she passed it herself in the end, but it took her quite a while. And then she gave birth quite quickly then to a couple more slugs and a load of other babies. And I don't know if some of them have been stuck inside her for a little bit too long. She had 11 babies and only 5 made it. The others were all really weak. So
do you still have those 5? Are you holding them back?
I got 3 of them.
Okay.
I'll probably keep a couple of those, but I've held back 5 of from the other litter, because I've not bred from that female before. She was an animal that I got. She was a zoo bred animal, actually. So the 2023 breeding I was talking about, there was a zoo that I knew the curator at, and he wanted some more emeralds. They had this one. And I said, did he want to do a breeding loan? And it come to me and make my mail to it. And the vets weren't that keen on that. Basically, long story short, in the end, I gave them a pair of babies for a sort of 8-year-old captive bred female. Because they were struggling to find one, because there's in the UK, there's only been sort of one breeding, while I was in the zoo world anyway, which was actually at a college, and most of the emeralds in the northern emeralds in the UK zoo collections were descended from that breeding. There are a few other ones around, but they were struggling to find an unrelated animal. So yeah, we did a bit of a kind of deal there. So so she can't remember what I was telling you that now.
I think I was asking, I can't remember either. What was that process like?
Holdbacks.
Oh yeah.
So she then had a litter, and I've kept 5 of those. So I've got 5 from each female to grow on and see what, I want to keep permanently, maybe all of them, who knows.
What was that process like, doing the trade with the zoo? Was it painstaking? Because I've heard that it's pretty painstaking here in America.
No, it was. It wasn't too bad. It was, you can't call it a trade really, because obviously they're allowed to. If something is surplus, a zoo is allowed to surplus it. If there's no one else wanting it in the zoo world, But yeah, so they gave me an emerald and I gave them two, basically.
Okay.
With the sort of, I suppose, reasoning behind it is they were getting some bloodlines in that weren't represented in the zoo world, and they could grow those two animals on, and you know, whatever they got from anywhere else would be unrelated to them.
Okay. Man, yeah, the watching them give birth is just nuts. That's
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's such a wild thing to watch.
Yeah, they must come out of their amniotic sac inside the female, I think, and because they come out not in the sac, and they're immediately, as soon as they're out, they're looking for something to grab hold of. If you watch it, especially the 2020, the video I got in 2023, there's one that comes out backwards and you can just see its tail, like it's like looking for something as it's coming out, and it grabs a branch, pops out, and off it crawls. Yeah. Yeah. So it's amazing. Yeah.
So what do you attribute your success to? What do you think are what are the top three things?
Captive bred animals, I think, is a fairly big game changer. I've had wild caught animals in the past and done fairly poorly with them. I probably, in the early days, had animals that I probably should have known better of getting and thought maybe I could rescue them, talking a long, long time ago now. Yeah, so I'd say being captive bred, keeping them hydrated is a big thing for health, I think. I don't think, personally, that they're a particularly difficult snake to breed, if you can keep them well. I think if you can keep them well, the chances are that you can probably reproduce them.
So it's just about having your husbandry dialed in.
Husbandry dialed in, good animals, and probably food cycling, I think, is a big thing with breeding them. So not feeding them too much, and then near the end of the year, ramping that up a little bit to make them sort of realize it's the season of plenty or whatever.
Are you kind of doing them? Do you sort of do a similar food cycle with them that you do with your Timors, or is it more you feed them sparsely throughout the year and then ramp them up at the end of the year?
Exactly that. Yeah, feed them sparsely, ramp them up, like I say, probably September, October, feed them a little bit more. I usually start pairing them at the end of September or into October. Another thing, actually, I would say that I think is quite important. I feel like the male being in there may help, because I think with a lot of boas, this may be the case of the male being in with the female for a prolonged period of time and courting her may sort of bring her into breeding condition. I put them in, and the males are in there until either the female ovulates or sort of maybe about sort of March time, something like that. So they can be in there for 5 or 6 months with them, and I just split them to feed them. Sometimes the males will eat, sometimes they don't want to eat in the winter, in the breeding season. The females are always ready to eat. But yeah, I give them about 2 months of non-feeding during that time, and then I also, when I bring them out of that fast, I usually feed them heavily for like a few, 2, 3, 4 meals after that. Feed them biggish and maybe a bit more frequently, once a fortnight or something like that.
Okay. And so this would be after they've bred and you've had locks and everything, then you're gonna
yeah. So I ramp it up a little bit just before stopping feeding them, and then I hit the female with a few good sized frequent meals afterwards to sort of see if it helps to trigger an ovulation, basically.
Okay. Wow. Anything else you want to say on the emeralds?
Can't think of anything particular. I mean,
how many animals do you have altogether?
Just emeralds, we're talking.
Yeah, let's do just emeralds, and then let's do entire collection.
I've not got a huge collection, so I think it's 15 emeralds in total. Only 5 of them are adult. 6 actually, because I've actually got one animal that's quite an old, but it was very runty as a baby, so it's like 11 years old, and it's, I don't know, the size of my 2.5-year-old ones. Wow. It didn't feed very well for a long time. It was I had to assist feed it when it was young, and then it turned into one of those ones where you feed it and it grabs it, wraps it, and you go back later and it's dropped it.
Yeah,
and only eats occasionally. Yeah. So, funny enough, the last few years, it's actually been eating really quite well, and it has actually put on a little bit of size, but I don't think it's ever gonna reach like its full adult size, because I'm pretty sure it's a female and it's tiny and it's slender as well. So, but including that one, I suppose I've got 6 adults, and the rest are holdbacks. So probably 16 actually. 16 emeralds. I got the 2 Timors, 3 pairs of Sanzinia, a couple of hognose. They're quite elderly now. 3 royals or ball pythons. They're again all fairly old. I've got 2 that I know they're at least 24 years old. I don't know how old they are. And I've got one that's probably around 35. She's the one I said that was the first snake I bought in 92. And I think she was probably 1 to 2 years when I got her. So she would have been, back in those days, they weren't being bred like they are now. She would have been an import. And I purposely chose the smallest one because I'd read they can be difficult to get to eat and stuff. She's always fed fine. She was, I think, 21 inches when I got her. So she wasn't a baby, but so I've had her for 33 years now. So she's probably about 34, 35-year-old. So,
and she's still going strong? Still
going strong. Her and one of the others, actually, I dialed their food back as well, because I was pretty sure if I wanted to, I could have got a clutch of eggs out of either of those, because they were starting to hug their water bowls and invert themselves in funny positions. And now I'm sure if I'd fed them a few more big meals, they'd have probably ovulated, or there's no male in there, but I don't want them to breed. So there's no male in there. And
how are you feeding a snake that's 34 years old? How are you, like, how many meals do they get per year?
I must admit, I probably don't keep good records of them. I kind of feed them when I feel they need to be fed. They usually start getting quite active. They've got good body weight, probably a good sized meal every 3 to 6 weeks. Probably on average about once a month they get a meal.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
and that keeps them at a good healthy weight.
Yeah, seems to. Yeah.
And so do they go off for a period of time as well?
No. I haven't had them go off food for ages and ages. So I know they're obviously renowned for that. And when I used to keep royals in racks and try and breed them, I used to get them go off food all the time. And I think it's because you're feeding them quite heavily to try and get them up to size either, or get them to breed in weight. But yeah, because I just feed them sort of steadily. They just eat. I can't remember the last time one of them refused to feed. Yeah, before I had a snake go, I think it was about 1,000 grams, and I was trying to get it to sort of like up to weight to breed. And as back in those days, I'm talking, this is like 20 years ago, everyone was saying, they need to be 1,500 grams before you breed them. And that one went off food for 9 months.
Oh, wow.
It lost some weight, but it didn't lose loads. And then one day, I tried all sorts to try getting it eating again, and it wouldn't feed. And then just one day, I opened the tub and I could see it wanted to eat, put food in, ate it straight away. So, yeah, but not had it with these. And I can only assume it's because I'm not feeding them a lot at any one time. I'm kind of just feeding them steadily.
Yeah.
Not saying it's the way you got to do it, but it's just what I do and what I notice.
Yeah. What is it like owning reptiles where you're at, and is legislation a concern of yours?
Yeah. You had Tony from Responsible Reptile Keeping on, didn't you, a while
Yep.
back, and he was sort of telling you about it. Yeah, it's like anywhere else. Animal rights activists, they've done a pretty good job of shutting all of our shows down that we have in this country. There's been one this year, and I don't think there's going to be any more now. Yeah, so it is a worry. But fingers crossed, can keep it all at bay. There's currently no legislation apart from the Dangerous Wild Animals Act for keeping venomous and crocodilians and things like that. So you don't need any kind of license to keep anything, that's not on that list. There's obviously CITES where you've got, animals have got to have the right certificates. Things like the Tanzania and stuff like that. They've got to be microchipped as well with the chip number on the certificate.
Really?
Yeah. And then that certificate goes with the animal then if it ever changes hands.
Wow.
So, yes, to prove the identity of the animal. When they're babies, obviously they're too small to chip, so you have to get the chips. And if you sell one as a baby, it goes with the chip and the certificate, because the certificate's got to have the chip number on it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. And what is that whole process like? I mean, are yours chipped right now?
Yeah. My two adults came chipped. The ones I've got growing on are not chipped. I've got 4 younger animals that they were too small to chip when I got them. They're probably about size or getting on for the size where they could be chipped now. So I'm going to have to get that done soon. I've not bred them yet, so I've never had to apply for paperwork and get all that sorted. So that'll be a process I learn hopefully when I get to breed them.
So is that something that your local vet does with the chipping? You just bring them in with the chips, and like what's that like?
Yeah. The chips come with an applicator, so someone that knows what they're doing can actually do it. I have actually done it once before when I worked at the zoo, helping with the vet team. And it is, you just, because we had injection training and stuff like that, so we could medicate things.
Sure.
And it is just sticking, it's like a wide needle in an applicator. It's almost a bit like a stubby syringe, and the chip is inside the needle. It's all sterile. So you take out the wrapper and you push the needle under the skin and then push the plunger in, and it makes like a clicking noise, and the chip pops in under the skin, and you seal it with some like kind of super glue, like tissue glue.
Sure.
Just to stop it coming out till it heals.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's pretty wild. And so are you going to do that yourself?
I haven't done it for such a long time, so I think I might have to call a couple of people up that I know that have done it more recently, get some help.
So when you get the chip with the certificate, the chip is actually in the applicator and like in a sterile package.
It's a little applicator and a certificate. Yeah.
Okay. Boy.
I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think you get the chips first and then you apply for the certificates and give DEFRA the chip numbers that you've got. I think that's how it works. But like I say, I've not actually done it myself, so don't quote me on that.
Does that process like kind of make you unhappy, or are you just happy that you can own the animals and you're willing to deal with that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. It's an extra cost, but it's not much. I think it's, for one certificate, it's like £30, but I think it's only, I can't remember the amount, but it's only a small additional amount if all the animals are from one litter and they do them all in one go. Like a set of certificates. So I suppose it could change at any time though.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be all about doing that if I could get a Burmese python.
Yeah. It's a shame you can't.
It doesn't make any sense that you can't. Like if they had that exact process here in Florida, where you go to FWC, you apply for the certificate, you get your applicator and your chip, and then you can get your baby and it's married to that chip.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I know they probably wouldn't want to, have the hassle of processing all the paperwork, but they could even take it a stage further and say you're only allowed to have, you've got to do all that, but you've got to have wild collected animals. So you go out and you catch your own juvenile berm, and then it's one less in the wild, and they know where it is in captivity.
It'd be like catching your own Pokemon or whatever,
Yeah, there you go.
No, I mean, how awesome would that be? I mean, people would love that. People that want to have a berm. I mean, that's a way of reducing the population in the wild. Obviously you have some biohazard concerns there. I definitely get them checked for pentastomes and the nidovirus and everything else, or serpento. But yeah, it's I'd pay $200. I'd pay the state $200 for that. And so you have more tax, or you have more revenue rather, coming into the state. And, it creates jobs for people that push that paperwork through. Yeah. It's a win-win all around,
Yeah. The only downside I can see is if it creates a lot of people that do it and start keeping them again. And then what do you do with the ones where people decide they don't want them anymore? That's, I suppose, the only negative I could see of it. Well, not necessarily a negative, but a hurdle to jump and find an answer to.
Yeah, I mean, with Florida being Florida, they'd probably say something like, if you ever don't want it, you're gonna have to euthanize it, because they're not gonna want to take it in. I mean, and as terrible as that sounds, maybe that would make people think twice about the long-term ramifications of owning that animal. You have to make sure you're damn serious about it. I mean, it's kind of like when, I remember getting married and they made us the state made us, read these pamphlets on marriage and divorce rates and all these things. And it was such a buzzkill, but at the same time, it did make, it made you think about it, and so maybe saying hey, this animal can potentially reach, this many feet long, and it can weigh this much, and it requires this size caging, and things like that. Yeah.
30 or 40 years.
Exactly. Yeah. So, if you're not down for this responsibility and you have to give it up, guess what? We're going to have to euthanize it too. That, or try to figure out some, amnesty program or something. I don't know. Yeah. It's a headache, and I get it. I get the headache behind it and why people don't want to do it, but I don't know. There's got to be a way forward, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So are there any, is there any legislation for cage size requirements for your animals or anything, or is that not a thing yet?
Not for the private sector. There is for pet shops, and zoos. I think that came in after I had left, so I'm not quite sure how that all works. But no, not for private at the moment. But if you're a shop or you're a business, then I think it's something like the length of the enclosure has to be at least 2/3 of the length of the animal. And the width has to be at least 1/3 of the length of the animal.
Okay.
Pretty sure. And I mean, probably everything I keep is in something bigger than that anyway, I think.
Yeah. Do you think that's sort of, that those would be fair guidelines if they were to put that onto the private sector?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair personally, because I mean, if you think a 6-foot carpet python you could keep in a 4x2x2.
Yeah.
And I would say that's a fair enclosure, to say is suitable, really. It's always difficult sizing enclosures with measurements as well, isn't it? Because you get some things that are a lot more sedentary than other things. If you imagine a a rat snake and a blood python.
Yeah.
A 4-foot rat snake looks tiny curled up in the corner, and a 4-foot blood python's a pretty big animal. The rat snake's far more active and quite possibly, in my opinion, would use a lot more space.
Yeah.
It is tricky.
Yeah, that seems like it would be, it's, and then also, you get into the whole racks and tubs and, where do they have their place, and again, I think that all depends on the animal and how old they are. And, like you said, I mean, you use racks and tubs for your babies, right?
So for the babies and some growing on. I just remembered another species I got actually as well. I got a pair of wheat-belt Stimsons, I forgot to say earlier.
Oh, nice.
They're in tubs still. Yeah, nice little things. They're about half grown. So,
that's awesome. I love Stimsons.
Yeah, they're nice, aren't they? And just touching back to what you were just saying about racks and tubs, there's tubs and there's tubs, isn't there? You can have a large tub and make quite a decent sort of enclosure out of it. And, looking at even like sort of commercial sort of racks, you can have tubs that are fairly big where you've got enough space for the animal, to have a couple of hides, maybe a bit of cork bark or a branch or something in there. And yet you see another side to that where the snake takes up nearly half the amount of floor space, which in my opinion isn't particularly great.
Yeah.
But it's not to say you can't keep in tubs and racks. It's just, it's more on the amount of space you're giving the animal, really. I mean, if it was a vivarium and the snake coil that took up half the floor space, in my eyes, that would still be pretty wrong,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're keeping an animal in a box at the end of the day. So I guess it all depends on, the size of the box and what you're doing inside that box that matters.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then too, like you said, a short tail python versus a rat snake, or something that's extremely active, and yet it might be the same length.
Yeah. Yeah. Or a racer or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I utilize, tubs and racks for growing animals up and quarantine. It just makes everything so much easier. And I feel like I can interact with the animal more easily too, during those first couple years of their life. That way my interactions, I personally feel they're less stressful because I can just go in there and I know right where they are and I can take them out, whereas something that's in one of these enclosures, if they don't want to come out, they're locked onto the branch, and then it's, kind of this.
Yeah. It becomes like a tug of war trying to get them out.
Yeah. Or tricking them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's,
it's how much time you've got as well. If you only got a couple of snakes, you can open an enclosure and you've got time to spend with that animal. You can let it come out on its own free will if it wants to, like you do with your Argentine, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But when you've got quite a lot of animals to look after, if you need to move one for cleaning or something, you might not have 20 minutes to sit there and let it, decide whether or not it wants to come out.
Yeah.
One of the joys of arboreals, actually, sort of emeralds and things, is they're really easy to work around in the day. They just sit on the branch. You don't even have to move them to do a substrate change. They can sit there.
Yeah.
You can clean around them and stuff. So yeah, that might have made me a bit of a lazy keeper in a way.
Yeah, I know my Morelia are very similar to that. My jungle carpets are always just up in their branches and out on display, and you can basically do whatever you want in the enclosure all day long, and they're just hanging out.
Yeah.
My Argentine last weekend, I think she spent 3 days in a row outside of her enclosure because she would come up to the glass and push on the glass, and I'd open it up and she'd just go underneath the enclosure stand and just chill there all day. But now she's eaten, so she has no desire in coming out of the enclosure.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find she's more interested in coming out when she's hungry? Is she? Is she
oh
looking
yeah,
for food?
absolutely. Yep. Yeah. I feel like temperature is like her lowest priority when she hasn't eaten. But after she eats, she wants to hug that hot spot and sit under the light and bask. So yeah, I was just looking at her right here, right now, and she has no interest in coming out. She's just staring at me from her basking platform. Do you guys have a lot of Argentines over there? Are they like a common boa that people keep in the UK?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're super common, but they are around. Most of the different sort of species, subspecies, and localities, are around here. I did have some longer cauda actually.
Oh, really?
They're a really cool boa. I decided to part with them in the end because the female was about 6.5 foot, and I had her in a 6 foot by, I think it was 80 centimeter deep by 2 foot high enclosure. And I don't know, I thought that's the minimum I want to keep her in. And then I had 3 others, and I don't know, it just got to a point where I was thinking, have I thought this through when they're all fully grown? So I want to give the team, I've had the Timors longer, and I wanted to give them the space really. So and also on top of that, I was fairly successful with my emeralds in the meantime, and I kind of want to keep a reasonable number of youngsters back of them. So I decided to go out at a longer cauda. They're really nice boas. Yeah. The Argentines are on, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they're on CITES Appendix 1 as well. So you have to have the same paperwork and microchipping in the UK as you do with the Sanzinia. Doomrills and Madagascan ground boas as well are the same.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, it's wild to think about that with Doomerals, because they're so, I wouldn't say they're common over here, but they're available, like sort of readily available, and no restrictions.
Quite a few available. They're fairly available over here. Yeah, see quite a few around, and I don't know if that's put people off breeding them sometimes as well, because where they're of a lower value, I don't know if they can be bothered to pay for the certification and then the hassle of it, sort of thing. But
you got me thinking now about sort of enclosure size and my long-term plans, and I guess at some point I'm going to have to push out and do another building. I guess it'll depend, and it's kind of it'll depend. Like there's no way I'll ever keep my Timor python in an enclosure that I think is too small, so I'm just going to have to keep an eye. Like right now she's got more than enough room in a 4x2x2, totally adequate. But, I'm sure that as she gets older, maybe another 2 or 3 years, it's going to be a different story.
Yeah. And I'm not saying everyone's got to keep them in an 8x3x3, 2 high, 2 levels, but it's just what I want to do and how I feel, I like to keep them. I know a lot of people do well with them in smaller enclosures,
well, I mean, I've thought about getting, a building put in next to the house. And if I do that, I'm not going to be buying a bunch of additional animals. I'll be buying larger enclosures, that's going to be the primary push is, just having more 6x2x2s, probably 8x2x2s, and getting some longer, larger enclosures. Cause once I set up the 6x2x2s, I was like, man, I really like that. I like being able to have the snake where she can stretch out from one end of the enclosure to the other and, just have to bend her tail a little bit, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, you can get used to seeing things in different size enclosures and feeling okay with it. I found me personally, when I put something in a bigger enclosure, especially if I notice behaviourally it's using a lot of the space and what I put in there, I feel then like I wouldn't want to keep them in something smaller. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think working at the zoo did that a lot for me, because a lot of things you'd see, using all the space they had, really.
Yeah. And I mean, you can, another form of enrichment, in my opinion, is taking your animals out. It is. That's definitely, I mean, like my Argentine girl coming out. She's really probably my only snake that wants to come out. she's
Yeah.
like she's like the only one that actively wants to come out. The other one is my boa imperator. She will come out and kind of hang out the front of her enclosure as well. But like you just said, I put her into a 6x2x2, and at first it seemed like it was enormous, and now I see her use the entire thing and sprawl out up in the branches all the time. And it's like, I could never put her back in a 4x2x2, even though she's not that big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's once you see them use it, you're like, geez, I can't downgrade you.
Yeah.
There's no way. I don't know. It's, if I were to get a bird, I'd be totally screwed because it'd need to have a flight cage or something.
Yeah. Yes. When you think with birds, I mean, I quite like birds. I don't keep any apart from, we've got a few chickens in the garden, but, you know, you think really in a way, the whole sky is a big place, isn't it? It's a bit like the whole sea is a big place for marine mammals like whales and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
Again, that's not me saying no one should keep them. I probably would keep a few birds if I had more time, but, yeah.
Yeah, for me, it would have to be like, I used to toy with the idea of getting, you know, like a small parrot, like, you know, like a conure or something, but I wouldn't want to have it inside. It would need to be in an outdoor aviary.
Mm. Yeah. I did dabble for a few years with falconry a little bit. Something I was always interested in. I had a red-tailed hawk for a couple of years, which was brilliant. You know, lovely bird, but it's really time consuming, and I find it really difficult to find a lot of decent land to fly him on. So he was starting to get frustrated because he would try and catch rabbits, and he was missing rabbit after rabbit, and I ended up rehoming him to somebody who had lots of flying land, and he was much happier with them. So,
oh wow,
yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, it's I kind of had a similar thought. I wanted to get a chameleon for quite a while, and yeah, it's just like, man, that's a lot of work. You know, it's so much more work than a snake. You know, it's
snakes can make you lazy. I think every time I have had lizards in the past, I've always felt a bit like, oh, like you say, this is so much work. Snakes are so much easier. But
yeah. My son has a White's tree frog, and I think he's realizing how much labor that is compared to a snake.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, one of my daughters has got a Western hognose. The other one used to have crested geckos when she was younger. So we've had a few different things. Well, they've had a few different things, but yeah, lizards definitely take up more time. I used to have a pair of tree monitors as well. So yeah, Prasinus. But I had them before I worked at the zoo, and when I worked at the zoo, we had Prasinus, and we ended up getting Macraei as well. And I never used to see much of my monitors because I was at work all day. By the time I got home in the evening, they were gone to sleep. I used to just put cockroaches in a big tub, put it in there for them to take out in the day. And because I was working with them at work, in the end, I decided to part with them as well.
Yeah.
But
did you have you kept scrub pythons?
Yeah, we bred them at the zoo. Actually, we had a pair of Barnecks there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I had at one point, I think I had 9 Norta Tannenbars.
Oh, okay.
I bred them 3 times, I think. I think the last time I bred them was 2019. They were another one that I decided, you know, with the Timors getting bigger. The enclosure the Timors are in that I was telling you about, that used to be what I kept some Norta in. And I used to split them up for feeding. But yeah.
Okay. And how were they? Were they wild caught or captive bred?
I think the adults I had 2 captive bred females and 2 long-term captive males.
Okay.
Bred from both those pairs. So yeah.
How was their disposition? Yeah,
they were probably the worst. I had white lips many, many years ago. We're talking like 25 years ago or something. And I thought they were bad. I found the tannin bars awful. They were terrible. Really, really, like you couldn't work around them like I can with most other things. They were a nightmare. They really were. And they'd hammer into the front of the enclosure when you walked past. I had, one animal, one of the long-term captive males was okay once he was out of the enclosure. You could handle him fairly confidently. But the others were all, they never ever got out of it. They were terrible. So
really,
yeah, that's how I found them. Again, I'm not a really big hands-on person that's got to pick things up all the time. So
sure.
Maybe if someone took the time to work with one, a lot. But
and how many times did you say you reproduced them?
3 times.
Okay.
One female once, and the others twice. Yeah, the last clutch I had, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, 2019, I think it was. Yeah. And
were you doing maternal incubation or artificial?
I tried to on the last clutch. In fact, it's not on my Instagram, I don't think. I've got a picture somewhere on my phone. I'll send it to you of a female on a clutch. And I put a sensor probe from a thermometer in there. And I think she incubated them for about a week and then left them. So I hatched them in an incubator. Even though I was trying maternal, I made sure that I had an incubator ready to go, and it was just as well. So hatched them artificially in the end.
What did you? How did you get them to breed? How did you get the females to ovulate?
They were just food cycling, and the regime was what I told you earlier about my room getting a little bit cooler at night in the winter.
Yeah,
I actually found, I know some people struggle with them. I found them actually really easy, and I don't know if it was because I had captive bred females, or captive hatched females, but they didn't cause me any problems breeding. Just in general maintenance, they caused me problems.
And how cold did you say your room gets during the winter at night?
In the winter, I aim for it to be like 72. It does vary because the floor is fairly poorly insulated. So it might be like 72, higher up in the building, and it might be like cooler than that. Lower down, it might be 69, 70 sometimes on a really cold night, but only briefly for a few hours. The actual floor gets quite cool. So I'm hoping to use that to my advantage when I get the Sanzilia out there, because they want a fairly good drop in the winter from what I've heard. Yeah,
for sure. Okay. So, and then you did basically the same food cycle that you do with most of your animals?
Yeah, just fed them sort of moderately, like maybe once a month or something, and then ramped it up near the end of the year. And then when I start, and then a break from feeding, and then hit them hard with it when I start them up again.
And how old were they when they went?
I didn't have any of them from babies, so I think probably 4 or 5, something like that. They would have been roughly.
Okay. All right, that's not too crazy.
Yeah, they weren't super old. I'm sure it's 4 or 5, something like that.
Okay. Any complications at all aside from the one female leaving the eggs?
No, not at all.
That's good.
They were, like I say, just like put them together. They bred, kind of almost seemed too good to be true, really. Too easy. But yeah, like I said, I think I can remember years ago, ball pythons were difficult to breed. It was always, they were always known as being tricky. And now a lot of generations in, they're almost simple, aren't they? And I do wonder whether, when something's been bred in captivity, it is an easier breeder itself, particularly the females, I think. Yes. I can remember, like, have you ever seen the Ross and Marzek book, Reproductive Husbandry of Pythons and Boas? Big blue boa and python breeding manual?
I've seen it. I don't own it yet.
yeah, that's it's a really old book now, but I mean, it's still worth having because it's kind of it's sort of legendary, really. I mean, I sort of spent most of my time with my head buried in that book, in the 90s, whatever it was.
Wow.
And in there, I think the breeding regime for ball pythons was that you had to group breed them, and you left them in together for 4 or 5 months, all as a big group. And I did manage to breed them by borrowing a few off different people back in those days, and keeping them in a 4-foot viv all together. And I got 2 clutches of eggs, but that was before people were sort of regularly breeding them. But then, moving along from that, people sussed it out. And I do think as things get bred and you've got, animals that are several generations in, it becomes easier.
Yeah. Are there more Timors available over there that are several generations in bred in captivity?
No, I don't think so. I rarely see Timors for sale, to be honest with you, over here. So, now it's much more difficult to get stuff from Europe now to the UK since Brexit. That sort of messed up a lot of. Used to be I could say go over to Ham Show in Germany, and I could get I could buy whatever animals I wanted, and as long as I got the right paperwork from the breeder, this is non CITES 1 animals. Obviously, they've got to have their certificates and everything, but they get, I think they call it a transfer declaration, which they just fill out with the name and address, the species. They sign it to say that they bred it or whatever, and you could just bring it back, but you can't do that now. Now it's got to be. I don't know actually how to do it now. It's got to be like a proper process where you apply for permits and stuff.
Wow.
So because we're not.
Do you think that will like reverse and go back to the way it was?
I have no idea. It'd be nice if it did, because it would make things like that a lot easier. But because we're not classed as we're not in the EU anymore now, which most other European countries are, so they can all trade between themselves easier than we can. It's kind of messed that up, really. But I don't go too into politics. It's not a subject I'm very passionate about,
unless it screws up your hobby.
yeah. So I couldn't really comment on what I think will happen, because I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like whenever we like the kind of disdain for the reptile keeping hobby seems to be a bipartisan issue here in the States. It's you get kind of hate from both sides. So that's kind of a good thing, I think. It keeps it keeps that that picking of sides at least out of that subject. It's kind of everybody's equally responsible.
Right, I see. Yeah. So you're not picking one person over the other for anything to do with herpetoculture, because they all think the same thing. Yeah.
I don't even know if there's any like really pro reptile keeper politicians. That'd be interesting to look into. It seems like they just all are kind of like, I don't get it,
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
It's a hobby that's getting more and more popular and commoner, isn't it? You would think there would be somebody out there.
It'd be great if it'd be great if even, it was like, oh, my son or daughter, has, 10 or 15 snakes or something like that. And then, maybe get a little bit more compassion and understanding, especially, when it's a good keeper that, is doing doing it right. I mean, even my family is not there's very few people in my family that are into reptiles. And even the ones that really dislike snakes, think my cages look good and they were impressed by them, which is
that's good.
Yeah. In my opinion, that's a victory right there, where it's like, all right, cool.
At least it's something positive they're saying about it,
Yeah. Do you keep anything outdoors ever? Do you ever have like a temporary cage that you move anything outside into?
No, nothing that I've got now. I used to have quite a few box turtles, which I I built a greenhouse and I would put them outside. Well, depending on what species they were, I had some Chinese box turtles, which would go out when it was warm enough, and then in my reptile room in the winter. And I had some different American box turtles, which most of those used to hibernate out in the greenhouse.
Oh, wow.
Because it was all covered in and, block walls going into the ground. But yeah.
You don't keep them anymore?
I don't, no. No, turtles are a lot of work. And the ones that need to come in the winter, you end up with, a couple of 4-foot vivariums that you can't do anything else with because you're going to need it for turtles in the winter. And when they're inside, they're quite messy as well. So I gradually went out of them. Do like them a lot though.
What was your what was it like feeding them? What was their diet mostly comprised of?
Well, they're omnivores. So I used to breed a lot of cockroaches, dubias and death's. I think they were a hybrid that I got of death's heads and something else. So someone was telling me anyway when I got them. Anyway, these big blabberous cockroaches. And I used to breed loads of those, and I used to freeze them so they couldn't obviously just run away. Because while they're quite good at chasing things down, if you big planted enclosure, you chug them down, they're gone, aren't they? So I used to freeze them. I used to collect snails and freeze as well, and give them worms, and then obviously chop fruits and veg. And I chop all this up in bowls and put it in the enclosures and let them just take what they wanted. So but they can be quite messy, especially indoors.
How did your wife feel about frozen cockroaches?
I got a separate freezer.
Smart.
I got a shed with power in. I've got a small chest freezer and I use for rodents.
Nice.
So I've for a long time had my own freezer. Use it for dog food as well because my dogs are all fed. So use it for dog food. So
I have a pretty decent sized chest freezer that I keep all my feeders in, and I freeze all my cocoa block and everything that I get to. That way there's no
chance of mites.
Exactly. Nothing.
I do that as well. Yeah.
So it's got to be a pretty big freezer because I usually buy the Reptichip in bulk and then kind of freeze it and take it out as I need it. And what is your preferred substrate?
I use cocoa chip mainly for most things.
Yeah.
If I've got stuff in tubs and they're on, like say, like the babies, the baby emeralds are in probably like, I don't know what you call, like maybe slightly larger than a shoebox tub. I think they're about 40 centimeters by 20 by 18 high, something like that. And I use paper towel for them because it's quite absorbent. And in the early days, particularly, they need to be fairly humid. So the first couple of, I keep them very humid until they've had the first slough. So just keep the paper towel damp and a large water bowl in there. But then moving on from that, as they grow, it's just a water bowl and being in an enclosed tub, it's fairly humid anyway. I sometimes just tip a tiny bit of water onto the paper towel to, get a light fog on the front of the tub.
Okay.
And newspaper in sort of quarantine setups, or larger. I got the younger Sanzinia that are grown on in some big tubs. They're on newspaper because I don't like to use substrate too much when there's a heat mat underneath it because it can sort of double insulate it and make the heat mat get very hot. So in those situations, I tend to use like paper or something, but pretty much everything else is on like cocoa chip.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I usually use paper towel in my quarantine tubs just so that way I can see things too,
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird too with the coconut chip because then it's like, are they getting the heat too? Like are they able to get where the probe is positioned, which is like on the outside of the tub and under substrate? Yeah.
And like you say, also I've had it where I felt heat mats get a little bit too hot as well. If you move the substrate, particularly if a snake has pushed a load of it on it and there's a thick layer above it, it sort of insulates it. So yeah, I don't like to do that, but I like it for everything else. I mean, I really like it for the emeralds because you can chuck, if you need to, you can chuck a couple of jugs of water in there and it soaks it up. And I just try and keep the substrate moist, not sopping wet, but just moist all the time.
Yeah.
That's my aim.
What do you think? What has your eye next, or is it just sort of continuing on the path you're on with the emeralds? It seems like that's your primary passion now, right?
Yeah, it is really continuing that. I'm like I said earlier, I'm gonna hopefully build up a small group of Amazon tree boas, Hortulanus. Quite like some of the reds and that. I've got one animal already, a youngster that I picked up this year, and I'm hoping to get another one soon. I've got me name down on a list. Someone who's got some animals with some quite good genetics. So they've just been born actually. So some nice reds and yellows in that litter. So yeah. So I don't want to have tons of them. Probably a couple of pairs eventually. But yeah, and I think probably just more northern emeralds. I've held back quite a few females, so I'd like to try and get maybe a few really, really nice males to bring in as sort of fresh blood and genetics, and to pair to some of my holdback females later on. I'd really
all
like
captive
to get
bred.
Yeah. A friend of mine's got a gravid female at the moment that might produce some patternless, so I'm kind of possibly holding out for one of those.
Oh wow!
And I also like the look of the really high white ones, like the Miss Willie line. So I might try and think about whether I can find a way of getting some of those in the future as well.
Hell yeah, man!
I think that's the route I'll go down.
Right on. All right, man. Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about, or otherwise, I think we'll wrap it up.
No, I think covered everything. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Awesome.
Maybe one little extra story actually, which is it's another kick in the teeth of emerald keeping, but of a strange predicament I had with some animals overheating. And I suppose I'm saying this just to show how delicate I think they can be when they're not kept in the right conditions, and why I have a big fan keeping them, the temperature down. I had the ones that I was talking to you about. I had, like I was breeding from 22 years ago. I had a situation with them where my room overheated because I'd gone in there and I was talking to someone on the phone and couldn't hear what they were saying because the fan was on. It had been a really hot day. Switch the fan off and forgot about it because, went back in there in the evening and it had cooled down. Completely forgot about it, left it overnight. The next morning, checked on them. They were all fine. And again, it was cool in the morning. So, like those sort of autumn days where it's sort of like, well, I don't know for you actually in Florida, but over here it can be really quite hot in the day and quite cool quite cold at night. And so the mornings are, can be a bit chilly. It turned out to be a really, really hot day. There was not a cloud in the sky anyway. Got home after work at the end of the day, and as soon as I walked in there, I just felt the heat hit me and realized what I'd done. And I thought, oh my God. I don't know what temperature they actually got up to. There was a little crappy dial thermometer in there that it only went up to 95 and the needle was sort of past that. Basically, I sort of looked at that and just chucked it and switched the fan on, and I was missing everything down with cold water. All my adult emeralds were like just hanging off the perch really loosely and uncomfortably. So I sprayed them all down with cold tap water. The holdback babies, I think there was 4. They looked really awful and they never recovered. They died, the babies. So,
damn.
Yeah. So it was really gutting. Strange thing was the adults all recovered and they carried on and bred every year for probably the next 8 or 10 years. I was getting litters from them, but always infertiles. They never it was as if something to do with the heat sort of sterilized them.
Oh my God.
It sounds really bizarre and wacky, but they went from breeding really well, like 4 litters in a row, and then they overheated, and then they just produced slugs constantly. So I think it was probably about 4 or 5 years later, I thought, well, it's got to be the male, surely. So I got a different male in, and it was still the same. So I'm guessing it had to have done something to the females. I don't really know what that could have been, but they all lived for about another 10 years afterwards. But yeah. So
but just sterilized, basically.
Sterilized, yeah. Which is why I had a big gap in breeding emeralds from then until now. Because I ended up getting a new pair of babies and growing them on, and they're the ones that bred in 2023. So, yeah.
Oh man, that's so terrible. And just from one stupid mistake, one oversight.
Yeah, I never switch that fan off now. And no matter how much it's annoying me, and I've got a spare fan as well, that if that one ever failed, I could put in quite easily. Yeah,
redundancy.
So just in case.
What are the dimensions of your snake room?
4 meters long, which I think is about just over 13 feet, and it's 8 feet wide.
Okay.
And I'm adding an addition of, I've got another 8 feet going on the end.
Nice.
So,
all right, and everything is in that room?
Yeah, apart from quarantine stuff, which I've got a adult pair of Sansinia behind me, and I've got a little Amazon tree boa in the lounge at the moment.
Okay.
The extension's taking me a bit longer than I was hoping, so I'm a little
So
bit
this is a
behind on
room on your house that you're getting extended?
No, it's a building in my garden.
Oh, okay. That's what I need, dude. I need a building.
But I haven't got tons of space, so once I've added that 8 feet onto it, that's it. And I think that's maxed out. I'll have to move.
I'm on half an acre, so I want to get like a 24 foot long by maybe 14 foot wide building. And I could set everything up in there really nicely at some point. That's my dream.
That would be awesome. How long did you say? How big? 34, did you say?
I want to say, God, I wish I could remember because I got a quote for it already, and it was like $20,000 for this building. I want to say it was 24 feet long and 14 feet wide.
Right. Yeah, that's a nice size.
Yeah, or it might have been 34 feet long. And essentially, like, what I want to do is have a room at the beginning of it, which would be like the like washroom. You know, I'd have a sink in there,
like a separate,
big sink with a counter and cabinets to put, buckets and tongs and all sorts of stuff in, and maybe have the freezer in that room, and have maybe the incubator in that room, and I'd probably turn this room that I'm in now, which is my office, into, quarantine if I were to ever get any new animals. But like I said, I really want to just kind of focus on expanding out and being able to get them bigger long-term enclosures,
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess once I have all these leftover 4x2x2s, I could probably get more Morelia, maybe get more Antaresia or something. Yeah, maybe some emeralds.
Get some emeralds, yeah.
Emeralds terrify me, man. I feel like I'd kill them.
Yeah. If you ever go down that route, I would strongly recommend captive bred, definitely.
Yeah.
It is night and day from my experiences with them. I know some people have done well with wild caught, and I think if you can get them fresh enough and in good enough condition, then yeah. But
boy, that is such a sad story. I just
I didn't mean to end it on a bad one like that, but I thought it was a kind of explanation of why I haven't bred them for quite a while, and also just something for people to know, really, like about what overheating can do.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because as you were saying that, I was thinking exactly what you ended up saying. That it sounds like maybe it was the males, right? Because they
Yeah.
just got too hot and they couldn't, produce sperm anymore. And but man, what a bummer it was the females too.
Yeah, it was one of my life's low points, I think. So it's pretty soul destroying. It almost made me think about not keeping emeralds again, but then I got offered this pair with someone I knew, got them, and
Wow. And so you had them for how long? A decade where they weren't able to breed?
I'm sure it was at least 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And they would still breed. They would go through all the motions.
Sure.
Females would ovulate and then they dump out a load of slugs. Sorry, one little thing I missed out actually. When I got the new male, I ended up with quite a few more breedings, which were pretty much slugs, except for 2 animals in, I can't remember now, but probably 4 or 5 litters of slugs. There was just 2, which I've still got now. One is the little runty one I told you about. That's like 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is 12 years old. He's a year older, and he is the father of the birthing videos I put up yesterday. Okay. He's the father of that clutch. So that was all they ever had in that period.
Were there other animals that were in that room at the time that were able to go on and breed successfully? Yeah,
they were okay. Yeah. I had ball pythons in there.
Yeah.
I had a pair of Bolivian boas, Amarali. They still bred after that period happened. They were on the floor, which was the coolest place. So maybe that helped them. But everything else seemed to be okay.
Wow.
They all looked uncomfortable with the heat, obviously. Don't get me wrong. But the emeralds took the worst of it.
Damn. So it seems like they're just very sensitive to that high temperature.
I think they are. And don't get me wrong, they can, when a female's gravid, they're basking at like, high 80s, low 90s, maybe even up to like 95 degrees. But obviously they can get away from it.
Sure.
I think maybe kept really high temperature. And another thing is, because that fan wasn't on, it was just going to be like still stagnant hot air. There was no air movement at all. So that could be a factor as well of them overheating even more, I would think.
Yeah, it's terrible. You should have told me that story earlier so we don't have to end on this.
I should have really, shouldn't I? Yeah. No,
it's fine. I'm just playing with you. Well, I appreciate you, Andy. It was good having you on, and we've been kind of chatting about having you on for a while, so it was good to finally get you on here and talk about all your cool animals.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It's been great, and I'm honoured that you asked me, to be honest with you. So thanks for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure.
So it's a great podcast. It's one of the ones that I follow fairly religiously. So, enjoy listening to. So yeah, it's been great.
That means a lot to me, man. I appreciate it.